Hello and welcome to part 2 of Hikaru's Guide to a Holy Priest. In this video I'll be covering glyphs and what glyphs are useful for a holy priest. In the previous video I talked about talent specs, so if you want more information about that please refer to the other video, which is part 1. Okay, so let's talk about prime glyphs first. So the first prime glyph that will stand out the most for a holy priest is Guardian Spirit. So reduce the cooldown of Guardian Spirit by 30 seconds. That will bring the cooldown for Guardian Spirit altogether from 2.5 seconds to 2.5 minutes to 2 minutes. So basically anytime you can pop Guardian Spirit it's very very welcome, just because that some fights the tank will sustain pretty heavy damage and Guardian Spirit can work as a heal boost to them, or just oh shit button just in case they die or something like that. The next one I would look at is Flash Heal. So Flash Heal, even though you don't use it that much anymore, it's one of those cases where you just cast it on the person when you know they're about to take damage very soon and they're about to die. So basically this glyph increases the critical effect chance of your Flash Heal on targets at or below 25% by 10%. So that 10% extra crit, if I'm interpreting right. So that actually helps quite a lot. It basically does about 10k and maybe 13k on the crit on my gear, so that 3k additional is quite helpful, especially when they're below 25% health and you want to quickly boost them up. Next prime glyph is Lightwell. Basically increases your charges from 5 charges to 10 charges to 15 charges. Depending on how often you use Lightwell, it can be viable. I find myself not really often enough putting Lightwell down, only in fights which I know that there's going to be like massive amounts of AoE. That's when I put it down generally, but other than that I don't really find myself putting it down enough to justify glyphing this. So let's move down. Prayer of Healing. So basically glyph of the Prayer of Healing glyph will basically give an additional hot to your Prayer of Healing. So this is also in addition to your Echo of Light in the mastery of a holy priest. Whether it's necessary and worth having both of them stacked together, that's a bit iffy. And I don't find myself casting Prayer of Healing too much unless it's one of those fights which you really have to keep up the raid through a lot of AoE damage. But other than that I don't actually use Prayer of Healing, so it's there just in case I have to switch it in and out for particular fights. Renew, that one is just increases your renew by 10%. The reason why I chose to inscribe this is because that using the chakra mechanics, my renew is always going to be on the tank, and if it expires, it's not for very long because I always keep renew on the tank. I'll discuss more about that in the mechanics in probably the next video, but renew, that 10% extra really does help with keeping up the tanks. even though it's only a little bit, but it does help. Um, if I had an option to change one of these glyphs, one of the 3 prime glyphs that I've currently got, I would choose Renew to exchange for maybe, Prayer of Healing and maybe Lightwell, but I would choose Prayer of Healing instead of Lightwell. Yeah, okay. Moving down to major glyphs. Dispel Magic, that's one that you probably always must have always inscribed in your glyph book. Basically because just about every fight you can name in Heroics has a magic debuff, and 3% of maximum health, that's quite a big chunk, especially to a tank. Yep, it's quite a substantial heal. Spirit of Redemption. So basically, it increases your angel form after death for an extra 6 seconds. So I believe it is from 21 seconds, and this will make it 27 seconds. This can determine a fight, and it's also a tactic you can use. Like, let's say everybody's still attacking the boss, and you find yourself you've got no mana, and the boss is only 25% away from death, and you know that if you can last another 30 seconds, if you can last another 30 seconds, it's more useful to die and then go into Spirit of Redemption and heal in that. So yeah. However, it's optional once again. I mean, we don't plan on dying anytime soon, hopefully in Heroics, but it's just there, just in case. Mass Dispel basically reduces the cast time of Mass Dispel. However, the cast time of Mass Dispel wasn't that high either. I think it's 1.3 seconds, so 0.3 seconds for cast time. That basically makes it an instant cast. So, for some fights you do need a Mass Dispel. For example, the last boss of Vortex Pinnacle, where he puts a static field on everybody, which needs to be dispelled. Mass Dispel can be useful in those situations. Once again, it's a situational glyph, which you might choose to substitute with others. Scourge Imprisonment reduces the Shackle Shackle Undead spell by 1 second. Once again, nearly makes that an instant cast. But really, the only heroic I find that useful in is Shadowfang Keep. All the other Kata heroics doesn't have undead units in it. Fear Ward. Basically, it makes Fear Ward more usable more often. So that might be something to look into. And Circle of Healing is rating standard, so for heroics that's not needed because you don't need 6 targets being healed. For minor glyphs, you don't really have much of a choice. Fortitude, Levitate, and Shadow Fiends are the ones you want to get. Levitate just merely because you don't want to constantly worry about reagents in your bag. Shadow Fiend because you want some sort of fallback in case your Shadow Fiend does die. And Fortitude will just ease the mana cost of preparing for battle. Shadow Protection's no point having, although the tooltip says it increases it for 10 minutes, it actually increases it for an hour. They need to fix that up, I think. Basically most of the time you probably wipe in the first hour, so you won't probably need Shadow Protection to last that long. Other than that, so that's all for talent specs, and glyphs, and stay tuned for more for part 3 of this guide.